Today, we're diving into a pretty radical new roadmap for child protection. And I mean, this isn't about just tweaking the old systems. We're talking about architecting a whole new public-private ecosystem from the ground up, one that's designed to go way beyond traditional methods and actually take on the kind of complex threats we see today.
And really, the whole thing is built on this one powerful idea, which you see here. It translates to the fundamental right of every child to a childhood free from sexual exploitation and trafficking. This isn't just some nice-to-have goal. It's the absolute moral and legal foundation for the entire new architecture we're about to explore.
So here's how we're going to break it all down today. First, we'll get into this whole new way of thinking, this new paradigm. Then we're going to look at how they redefine the actual problem from an engineering point of view. After that, we'll unpack the three-step defense system they're proposing, see how that could create a brand new market, face the very real obstacles in the way, and finally, look at the massive infrastructure needed to make any of this a reality.
All right, Section 1, a new paradigm. The big idea here is a complete shift in how we even think about this issue. It's about moving away from the traditional and often reactive world of social work and into the proactive, structured world of systems engineering. Look, the tough reality that's driving this whole strategy is that the systems we have right now, no matter how good their intentions, they're just outmatched. They were built for a totally different time, and they're really struggling to handle the sheer complexity and scale of the modern threats that are often supercharged by technology.
Now, this is where it gets really interesting. The solution isn't just to throw more money at a system that's not working. Instead, this strategy borrows its playbook from a totally different field, cybersecurity. The idea is to apply that same proactive, market-driven approach to create a tough, self-improving economic sector that is 100% dedicated to child safety.
Okay, moving on to Section 2, here's where we see how this strategy is built. Because the argument is you can't solve a problem until you frame it the right way. And to do that, they introduce a couple of key engineering concepts. And this slide breaks down that dual challenge perfectly. On the left, you've got what they call MCO, or operational maintenance. Just think of that as everything it takes to keep the lights on and keep an organization running day to day. But on the right, you have MCS, or security maintenance, the work of proactively keeping kids safe. And the core problem they've identified is that organizations are so bogged down just trying to manage the day-to-day MCO that MCS has been, well, tragically ignored.
So the huge strategic shift here is this. Security maintenance, MCS, is no longer some optional extra you get to if you have time. It becomes a non-negotiable, core part of how any organization dealing with kids operates every single day. Safety gets baked into the system right from the very start, instead of being bolted on as an afterthought.
So that brings us to the operational heart of the whole thing, the three-step defense. I mean, it's great to talk about being proactive, but how do you actually do it? The answer is something the source calls the defense chain.
Now, this defense chain is a constant cycle: prevention, detection, and then correction. It's not meant to be some kind of magic, impenetrable wall because a determined attacker will always look for a way in. Instead, it's a system designed to wear them down, to make it harder, riskier, and more expensive for a threat to succeed, until eventually they're forced to make a mistake and show themselves.
So let's kick off with prevention. And this isn't just about putting up signs. We're talking active, cybersecurity-style tactics, like deception, which could mean setting up honeypots to lure in and identify bad actors. It also involves influence, which means running campaigns to actively deter potential offenders. And maybe the most critical part is recording weak signals, systematically gathering and analyzing all those tiny, subtle clues that might point to a future threat.
But what happens when something gets through? That's when detection kicks in. And this phase is all about speed and structure. It means having systems that can spot a breach in real time as it's happening, and having a formal, practice crisis management plan specifically for child-related incidents, so the response is fast and effective, not chaotic. And the final step, correction, is what closes the loop. This is where the whole system learns and gets stronger from every single incident. It means creating a secure data lake to analyze victim testimonies, even from old, expired cases, to find hidden patterns. It means after an incident, you formally review and adjust everything: the people, the activities, the resources. It's a constant cycle of getting better and reinforcing the defenses. Okay, so we've got this really powerful three-step defense chain. But a big question comes up. Who's actually going to build and supply all the tools, the software, the expertise needed to run it? And that brings us right to Section 4, creating a whole new market.
Because a system this advanced can't just be built by government agencies or nonprofits on their own. It needs a dynamic, competitive marketplace, a whole economic sector where private companies have a real incentive to create the best possible software, services, and hardware for child safety. And this slide gives you a little taste of what that market could look like. Under software, you could have companies building highly specialized risk analysis tools. In the services category, you'd find expert consulting firms or auditors that could certify an organization's safety protocols. And under hardware, you might see things like biometric sensors or even tablets specifically designed for early trauma detection.
And just to give you a sense of how big they're thinking here, the source points to one specific and pretty startling innovation: mobile labs called NEP criminals. The name actually comes from the Greek word for a preverbal child, and the idea is that these specialized units would actually visit schools and nurseries with advanced tools to help with threat detection and early intervention.
Of course, a vision this huge isn't going to happen just like that, and it's definitely not without some serious challenges. So Section 5 takes a very honest look at the real-world obstacles that are standing in the way of making this happen.
The roadmap points out 6 major roadblocks. First up, the obvious one: budget constraints. Child protection is just chronically underfunded. Then there's the fact that most places just don't have formal security systems. You've also got regulatory hurdles like complex data laws. And then there are the cultural issues: resistance to tech, a real lack of leaders who get digital transformation, and frankly, a persistent denial about insider threats, which leads to really weak background checks.
Getting past those obstacles takes more than just good intentions. It requires a rock-solid foundation. And that brings us to our final section: the massive public infrastructure that would be needed to support this entire ecosystem.
So, the public sector's job here is to build this central nervous system for this whole operation. We're talking about an international research center, a strategic command for policy, and new national safety agencies with incredibly strict hiring standards. It also calls for a comprehensive security operations center, a SOC, and a permanent unit for threat intelligence. And then, probably the most ambitious piece, is the proposal for a bio-ID system for every child starting from birth.
So when you step back, the roadmap is pretty clear. It's a blueprint for a total system overhaul, and it absolutely demands that everyone works together. It needs the scale and authority of the public sector to build that core foundation, and it needs the innovation and speed of the private sector to build all the tools and services that run on top of it.
And that really leaves us with the one big question at the heart of this entire strategy. After decades of relying on the same old models, is this the answer? Is shifting our entire approach to build a dedicated, market-driven, public-private ecosystem the real key to finally guaranteeing the fundamental safety of our children?